Interesting. You and I were sort of on social and just happened to notice that the CEO of Salesforce AI is now the head of Meta's business AI. And by the way, is Meta getting into enterprise apps?
Wow. So, long story, right? Meta, aka Facebook, used to be in the workspace place. They pulled the plug on that, if nothing else, because it was hard to correlate a social media brand with a business brand. With Meta, though, Meta is the odds-on favorite, used. I think the downloads are 90% of downloads on Hugging Face for businesses. And the big brands that are integrating them, not only at the, I'll call it the hardware OEM layer, which companies like Dell, but also across companies like AWS and Google, right, where you can actually integrate in their models. So people are pretty excited about this. I wrote an analysis of that on some of the big brands that they work with. And then recently they've extended that to the U.S. military complex as well. And I always had the question in my mind, well, who are they bringing in that's kind of hardcore enterprise here? And Salesforce, from an enterprise SaaS standpoint, to me, did a very good job building and articulating the value proposition. They had real science involved too, with their homegrown models and their data cloud. So Clara, who ran all that for Salesforce, is now coming over to Meta. And I'm just wondering, does this mean, I think you talked about applications. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that this is going to be about models, model management, the value prop for certain, for horizontal, but also going vertical. And I also, leaves me with a question, which was, what's going on with Salesforce AI?
So I don't have a lot to speculate here. I mean, we've taken a pretty good look at Agentforce, and I think the pivot that Salesforce needed to be made. We'll see how that goes. It's the right pivot. You could hear it from Satya as well. I mean, these apps will change. I guess when you say they're not going to get into apps, I mean, will there really be apps? Will apps be what we know? And my kind of point is Meta Llama becomes the you think about that plus a data fabric plus a abstraction and rendering capability of UIs. Why do you need an app?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, like, you look at Meta has a pretty compelling data case that they have the right data, and that whatever they don't have, they can get the rest. And so if you're really just thinking about a multimodal interface that you talk to and interact with that can kind of help and handle and agentically work across, there's got to be a ton of consolidation here. I mean, there just does. So the data all needs to exist. Where the data exists is sort of a question mark. And then what kind of super agent front end do you point at the data? That's a kind of a question. Do you have that kind of super interface, or is it actually a bunch of sort of distributed? Pat, you and I both talk about the client, the distributed, centralized accordion that'll go on. So knowing our luck, it'll start out as one and it'll end up the other over some period of time and then go back. So clearly, my last thought here is Meta has a enterprise thing. They do a lot of business for businesses. So when I say this, don't mistake. Their advertising business is really big, but they've kind of had these different sort of entrees into trying to be more of an enterprise company, and it's never quite landed. So Llama's been like the first thing, I think, where it's been really clear that they are a key component to the enterprise. Now where they build from here is really interesting. So, the one thing I know for sure is they may be called Meta, but the metaverse is not going to be their big business, at least not anytime soon.